Hey, it's Melissa from Kiwi Banana, and today I'm going to talk about 5 things that I have learnt over the 5 years that I guess I've identified as being vegan. And maybe these are some things that you possibly haven't thought of. Number one, I guess this is like a misconception that I can say that I personally had, and in that if someone else is vegan, then awesome. I can totally be like best buds with them. We're going to get along. We're going to go out and have some awesome vegan meals and chit chat about some vegan things and all sorts of other things that maybe not necessarily related to veganism. But no, that's not always necessarily the case. And one thing I have noticed, this is, I guess, still considered a fringe movement. And, fringe movements do attract some really kind of out there kind of people, I guess you could say. I'm not saying that I'm not one of those. And, I've also noticed that, vegans, but not just vegans, but, non-vegans as well, people can carry a lot of trauma with them, from their own past experiences and like intergenerational trauma from their family and whatnot. And just because you, I guess, adhere to a particular philosophy as another person does not necessarily mean that the two of you are going to get along like a house on fire. So that is probably one of the biggest things that I've learned when I guess, went vegan, and that I've learned obviously over the years that I've been vegan. Number 2, people are just really weird about food. Like, I guess I never really considered how strange people are about food. And that's not to say that I am not weird about food. It's just, I guess I really underestimated, things like religion and culture and politics, how that really, I guess, alters the way people see food, and people can just get really strange about it. I mean, even just saying, oh no, I don't eat that, I'm sorry, I just eat plants, I'm vegan. Just waiting for the wind to pass. And how like that can be offensive to some people. It's really, people are just really weird about food. Like you wouldn't think like food is as much of a big deal until you go vegan, and then you start to see how much, I guess, programming there is in regards to food, obviously, like I said, to do with religion and culture, politics, and I guess, now we live in this age of mass corporations and capitalism, and obviously there's a lot of invested interest in making sure that people eat particular types of food, and that they don't steer away from eating particular types of foods like meat and dairy. And eggs. So I guess the third one that I would say that I've learned a lot about since I've been vegan, and a lot more, as the years go by, is, if you want to be a good example of a vegan, or even just a good example of a good person, you really should do your research. Do your research, do your research, do your research. So I guess whatever you're most interested in, do your research on, but also try and cover a lot of other aspects that people may question you about veganism. So obviously you want to be reasonably knowledgeable in regards to how animals are treated, maybe globally, but also in your local area. And you also want to know obviously about some environmental impacts of eating particular foods, and you want to know also maybe some health impacts of that as well. Get really good at asking particular questions when you get asked particular questions, and really get the person thinking more about why they may be asking it, or why they think that, and I guess not speaking so much of an opinion, but more just getting them to question, and you question their questions, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I mean, that goes to saying almost anything that you want to be, I guess, getting more people progressing in a certain way is you want to do your research, and you really want to know what you're talking about. Because the more you seem to know what you're talking about, then obviously the more convincing you can be to other people, and getting them to see how they can live more in line with their values, or what it is that you are living for, I guess. Right, fourth one, yeah, this is dogma. Do I need to say more? I mean, I guess there's kind of this really good saying that I've been seeing going around a lot, especially to do with like the zero waste and low waste movement, is like, you know, it's great having that 1% of, you know, the westernized population to be, you know, getting it 100% perfect, whatever that may be. But what we actually really need, if we really want to make a difference, is we need like 90% of the population doing it 90% right. And that's obviously where we're going to see a much bigger change happening. You know, and it's not to say that, you know, it is great being 100% plant-based and not buying leather and not doing, you know, all those things that most vegans would say is, you know, if you don't do those things, then you are living more in a vegan lifestyle. And, you know, I am vegan and I don't buy things that I consider to be directly involved with the, you know, exploitation and use of animals. You know, and I love doing that. That works really, really well for me. But I also want to encourage others to, if they are, you know, thinking, oh, that's way too hard. You know, it's the same, you know, when I want to encourage people to like give up using plastic and things like that. I don't want to make it seem too overwhelming for them, because a lot of people, you know, they're stuck in their ways and they're stuck in, I guess, certain programs, and they, you know, have a lot of other things that they've got going on, that they're not so much centered around what it is that they do and how that impacts others on a bigger scale. You know, when it comes to things like consumption of particular, you know, everyday items. What we would consider everyday items living in a Western society is, you know, it's the same like, well, okay, so you don't think vegan is attainable. Well, how about you just give up eating no meat for a week and see how you go, and then progress further from that. I mean, it'd be great, you know, if, like I said, if everyone was perfect, whatever that may be. But we really need to, sometimes for particular people, we have to really break it down for them and try and get them to do it in incremental steps. And then they can look at doing it, you know, taking the next step and going a little bit further. And so, yeah, so I don't, dogma, you know, it has its purpose and its place, but it's not always helpful to be really dogmatic about certain things. And, you know, don't be so dogma about your dogma, I guess. That's really obviously one thing I've learned going vegan, and how I've really shifted and changed it, and how I see that in my approach. And, you know, I don't feel like I've been super dogmatic, even from the get-go, or even from when I was getting really passionately, I guess, maybe internally angry about the whole, you know, situation of, you know, things not changing fast enough. You know, I've always had this view, I've got to meet someone where they're at, and that will be different for different people, and that line will be different for different people as to how far you can push it as such. And so, moving on to the last thing I want to talk about, the, you know, fifth thing that I have learned in the last 5 years going vegan, is that it has grown a lot within this westernized, you know, I use westernized as a loose term, but I am sure that you kind of understand what I mean by that. You know, there's places like the United States and the UK and Australia, and how that, you know, that has really grown in many particular parts of the world. And obviously with that has come with some really exciting options, you know, like all these different options, like massive fast food, like corporations now are getting these vegan burgers and, you know, vegan junk food and whatever in their stores, you know, maybe particular stores for a limited amount of time, and all sorts of these things that, you know, 5 years ago we would not even imagine was a thing. And like now I'm seeing these like leather alternatives made out of like pineapple and mushrooms, and, you know, it's more eco-friendly, and it's like, it acts like leather and it breathes like leather. And so there's definitely a lot more options going out there now, which is really, really great, and obviously can help convince people who really, you know, are not vegan. But also, you know, we also have to obviously be aware that, you know, as there are other nations that are, their income is rising, they are looking to, you know, that kind of westernized world, and they're wanting to, I guess, consume particular materials and eat in certain ways. So, you know, as more of us may, you know, us in regards to, you know, people that kind of live in westernized worlds or developed nations or whatever you like to call it, how, you know, we are becoming more plant-based, and there seems to be increasing numbers there, but there is also an increasing number of people that are increasing their meat intake as their income rises. So that's something that obviously we're going to have to keep an eye on. You know, we obviously don't want to be pointing fingers at people over there that have, you know, don't have the same privileges as what we do. But, you know, maybe if we can pick up enough momentum with where we're going in the sense of, you know, developed nations, maybe as more of those income rises come through from other developing nations, they will hopefully see that, you know, eating more animals is not actually really a good thing. But obviously at this point in time, they are seeing that, that's something that they need to do if they want to live like us privileged people, because they think that is, you know, what their, I guess what some of them think is a particular way to happiness, which, you know, is a video for another day, and obviously that is what I would consider a misconception. But anyway, so that is my 5 things that I've learned over the 5 years that I've been vegan. Of course, I've learned a lot more than that, but I want to keep this video reasonably concise, but also be able to go into somewhat of a little bit of depth in regards to the 5 things that I've touched on. So if you want to talk about maybe some things that you've learned when you went vegan that you didn't necessarily think they would be things that you would even come across or even consider, or maybe it was a misconception, you know, leave those in the comment section down below. If you know, want to live more of a vegan lifestyle, more of an eco-friendly lifestyle, you're welcome to, you know, hit me up on any of my social medias down below. And, you know, you can flick me an email if you want to talk to me in private. I'm more than welcome to, and I'll see you in the next video.